I'm really proud of myself for pushing through, and it just shows like, you know, that your hard work can really just manifest into, you know, results no matter at what stage you're put into. Like I could have given up. Like it was really hard. It's kind of like a superpower, like stuff like this that makes you different. Like everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and it's just like about harnessing on those strengths and like using them to the best of your ability.
In part 2, Nicole shares a surprising aspect of herself with regards to mental health, which only adds to the amount of inspiration I drew from her journey, knowing that she made no excuse of her obstacles and absolutely crushed VCE with hard work and grit. So I hope you enjoy this conversation.
Just because, fun fact, this year I got diagnosed with ADHD, so I can't really comment on distractibility because I have more than most people.
Right.
So fun, yeah.
That's the first time hearing about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's something new. But
what is that? I've never known anyone with that. Or is it just being easily distracted, or?
So basically, what ADHD is, it's like an attention deficit disorder, and like, or hyperactive. Attention hyperactive. I can't even speak. Yeah. But basically,
deficit hyperactive disorder.
Yeah, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So basically, what it is, it doesn't mean that I actually have a lack of attention. It means I have a lot of attention, but I struggle to maintain it on a specific thing. So scientifically, what it is what they think it is, at least, is like I have a lack of dopamine transporters. So dopamine is your reward chemical, right? And so like for normal people doing basic things, you have that sense of reward and like fulfillment. So you're able to like hold your attention longer for it. Whereas for me, right, I don't have that same rate of like dopamine binding to my transporters. And so I lose attention really quickly.
Very interesting.
Yeah. It's also, it goes along with like emotion dysregulation. It's probably why I cry a lot. And things like restlessness and stuff like that. So yeah.
Oh, did you have that throughout year 12, or was it just recently? So you always had that, but you were only diagnosed recently.
I was undiagnosed in year 12. I think it would have saved me a lot of emotional struggle knowing that I had it, because I always, I went through a lot of emotional turmoil throughout year 11 and 12, because things are like hard, like people with ADHD, we excel in different aspects, but things like in a societal structure such as school, it's really hard. And so I was always wondering, like, why is it so hard? Because I have the hardworking, like I have the, ability to work hard, and I have the motivation and all of that stuff. Like the way that I describe it to some people, it's like, there's like a bridge, right? Well, there's a cliff, two cliffs, if that makes sense. That's a terrible way of saying it. Okay. But anyway, so for me, right, it's like I'm throwing copious amounts of hard work across like a bridge that doesn't exist. And so like only a minute amount of it falls onto the other side, if that makes sense.
So I can imagine like your like input of effort does not get you the same amount of output of, I guess, focus compared to the average person.
Yeah, focus, results. My memory is also very bad. My short-term memory.
That is just
my
extra
short-term
inspiring.
memory is really bad.
Yeah, that's just extra inspiring though. Like all of you kids who like think you're easily distracted or don't have enough willpower or whatever, like this is like living example of like that's not an excuse. You can still do well.
Legit, because that's the thing. It kind of ADHD manifests differently in girls. Not exclusively, but like when you think of like ADHD, you think of like a boy in a classroom, like being very disruptive, being very loud, all that type of thing. But like due to like societal pressures or stuff like that, girls feel more of a pressure, I can't even speak, pressure to conform and to like fit in and to like get good grades and all of that stuff. And so for a lot of girls, it goes undiagnosed for a really long time. Like usually like people with like adult ADHD get diagnosed, like for like women get diagnosed after like childbirth, because then they realize, I can't actually do all these certain things. Because like normal tasks are a lot harder. So yeah. Fun things, yeah.
That reminds me of like the story. I don't know if you know about David Goggins, but he's like one of my favorite books, one of the heroes. But it's kind of like, because he's a ultra marathon runner, so
Yeah.
hardcore endurance, like just beyond what marathons are. And he was later diagnosed with like a hole in his heart, and I think it was congenital. So pretty much the guy was running on like a half empty tank and still doing the shit that he did. And I think like that's like such a good analogy to kind of what it feels like you did as well. So even though you had that disadvantage, but willpower was still enough to get you through. Yeah, it was harder. And do you have any advice for people who think they might have similar traits to cope with the different emotional turmoils, as you said? Because I'm getting a feeling that you being diagnosed, actually having that label is somehow helpful to managing.
Oh yeah, 100%. I definitely think that whether you have some sort of condition or like some sort of mental, health problem, like go out and seek professional help. Like getting these labels and whatnot isn't a scary thing. In fact, the relief that I felt after getting my diagnosis, the night before my final psychiatrist appointment, I couldn't sleep. I was so restless because the idea of okay, what if I don't get diagnosed and this is just normal, because the way that I felt definitely wasn't normal, and not normal in the sense of not neurotypical, at least, right? Finding out that there's something different about you isn't a scary thing. In fact, the relief that I felt when I got that confirmation, after she went through all the details and stuff like that, I had to ask her again. So I'm wait, so I do have ADHD? And she's like, yes, you do. I'm oh, okay, thank God. Because to me, it's just such a relief, because you know yourself better, and finding out something like this isn't scary, because from here, as soon as you get your diagnosis, it's just it's up from here, because you learn how to better manage yourself. You're not so harsh on yourself, because I have a problem with perfectionism as well, and I used to be so hard on myself. I still am, but I'm getting better, and it's crippling. It really is. Not understanding your own mind or body, whatever your issue is, not necessarily issue, whatever your little perk is, can really take a toll on you, because you have this feeling of being less than other people, whereas it's actually no, you just are a little bit different, and there are ways to better use your skills and stuff like that. It's not all negatives to getting diagnosed with something. In fact, I would beg to differ. I think they're all positives.
So yeah, that's a really positive way to look at it. And yeah, I can imagine the relief, not because that you feel like you have a way out, not that you don't have to work as hard, but rather it's not your fault. Is that accurate to say, for your different emotional, because how did you feel when you feel I cried more than the average person, I had more emotional, I guess, turbulences? So did you feel did you attribute that with weakness? Did you attribute that with am I just crazy, or what is wrong with me? So therefore that provided the relief. Is that what?
Yeah, I kind of just felt I always felt silly being I cry so easily, so I always felt silly, and that's the thing. When during in year 11, I started counseling and whatnot, because I just couldn't understand why I felt this way. And at least in my case, right, they would try and slap on this the label of oh, maybe you have depression, maybe you have anxiety, and those didn't if I actually did have those things, that would offer me more relief, because I'd learned how to treat that. But I didn't, at least from my perspective, I didn't, and I didn't feel like those labels were correct. So just because that's the thing, I felt I didn't have a reason to be sad, and I didn't have a reason to feel this stress and this amount of pressure, but I couldn't help it. And learning that you're a little bit different neurotypically is fine, because you just learn okay, this is the way that I function, and then you go from there and you learn how to manage that.
So was it that dissonance between knowing that there is no actual logical reason for you to feel the intensity that you do, that brought the, I guess, mental stress? Or would that be accurate to say? Because
yeah, I think it's definitely a bit of both, because the emotion, me being super emotional, being I feel especially in high school, I felt restless all the time. I couldn't sit still and all that stuff. And I used to be what's wrong with me? Oh my God. So it's you definitely have going untreated for anything. You suffer from the symptoms because you're not treating them right. But then you also have this extra layer on top of it where it's like you are extremely harsh on yourself because you're undiagnosed with anything and your symptoms aren't being treated. But you don't even know you have those symptoms. So it makes you feel like, why, on top of suffering with the symptoms, you have that extra layer of being like really harsh on yourself because you're like, why am I specifically going through all of this? It's not normal to feel like this. It's not like, and you really beat yourself up about it.
So before you were diagnosed, did you just think that was something genetic? Did you think it was your temperament, or were you super hard on yourself and like just thought, okay, I'm just not controlling this enough? Was that your thought process?
Yeah, I just thought I was silly. Like, I was like, you can kind of have this feeling of being crazy. Because
and did that impact your self-esteem in any way?
Kind of, yeah, I guess it did. I guess, yeah, it made me feel, because that's the thing. I think I masked a lot of my symptoms really well. Like when I do tell people that I have it, people are shocked because you don't get that impression from me. But like what I dealt with a lot is feeling like an imposter, and it made me have like a bit of an identity crisis because I always had this chaos going inside my head, but like I had to try and like look composed on the outside, which obviously slipped up because I cried a lot. But yeah. That's
actually not weirdly, but like that's strangely motivating in a way, because I can imagine, like, does it feel good to feel like you've overcome that despite not knowing it?
Oh yeah, I'm so proud of myself. I'm like, damn, like, although we missed out on those C's, I could have gotten some C's for this. But yeah, no, I'm really proud of myself for pushing through, and it just shows, like, you know, that your hard work can really just manifest into, you know, results no matter at what stage you're put into. Like I could have given up. Like it was really hard and I could have given up, but I didn't. I think like, yeah, like obviously I would want her to know. And then from there, like you can just go and like treat it as kind of not a superpower, but it's kind of like a superpower. Like stuff like this that makes you different. Like everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and it's just like about harnessing on those strengths and like using them to the best of your ability. Like I'm able to hyperfocus. Like I can do things for a really long time if they catch my attention, right? So something like English, I had no problem doing English because I found it stimulating and stuff like that. So it's learning how to work with the brain that you have and body as well. Like, yeah, I think a lot of people shy away from getting diagnosed with anything or finding out more about their body. They're kind of just like living in this like pinball machine of just getting hit around. You know what? Go find out certain things. Go get your blood tested. Find out if you're iron deficient, because maybe that's why you're so tired. Like there are so many things that like people skim over. Yeah, I'm a big thing about like your body's health very much. Your body and brain health very much reflect like how you feel and like your ability to perform. Like there's a reason why like athletes take such good care of their body. Like people in VCE tend to neglect their body so much. Like I know I was someone who did.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, you compromise your sleep, you compromise your eating habits. You're not drinking enough water. There's like your body starts physically dying, and like your brain will deteriorate with it. Like so many people, like including myself, were just not taking care of themselves, and yeah, your body and your grades will suffer because of it.
So I think like some easy stuff you can like fix right now about like your diet or just the way you're taking care of your body. I don't know about sleep being a huge factor for me, because if you stay organized and you don't let if you study consistently, you shouldn't have to pull all-nighters. So that wasn't 100%. Really a big factor. But for me, I guess I didn't sleep enough. So it was around like probably 6.5 to 7.5 hours per night. Yeah. And I know people will probably get a lot less. And what do you think are like the biggest factors that contribute to that? So I think some obvious ones are like definitely phones. So one habit I've made and rule I've made throughout quarantine, actually, since I fixed my sleep schedule, is that I turn my phone off at 9. So at least I turn the Wi-Fi and the mobile data off. So no distractions, nothing. And so that just helps me to sleep better. And also I think it's people as well, because the way people can be like really like a polarizing effect. They can be really positive to interact with sometimes, but at the same time, if you don't if you don't manage that carefully, you can let especially with social media, because on Facebook, I remember this one day where like before bed, I just checked Facebook once, and then that really just blew it. And like, I probably stayed up way longer than I should have, just like thinking, no, not even just like scrolling through it. Just like, I just saw something, and then it just gets like your social, that kind of like comparison going. And then, it's really unhealthy. And people really need to get away from that, I feel like. But another point was that on sleep, how do you think, what was your sleep schedule like, and how do you think you could have better managed it given the tools and conditions that you were in?
Well, my sleep schedule is still really bad. But definitely, like, people don't realize the importance of getting like a good night's sleep. There are so many psychology studies out there which show how like a lack of sleep, even if it's a few hours consistently, can really deteriorate your brain function. But I think definitely phones. Oh my gosh, like, we're so addicted to our phones, especially like social media is literally designed to be addictive. Like, there are studies which show that like a like on Instagram produces like the same amount of like endorphins or adrenaline, I can't remember specifically, as, I don't know, something else, but like the whole thing, like we're like trained on these things. So I definitely think putting, as hard as it is, because I don't even do it myself, but like turning off your phone early, having those hours just before bed where you're not on your screen, because like it's so obvious, and we all know that like if you are using your phone and then you turn it off, it's going to take significantly longer to go to bed straight away than if you stop using your phone an hour before bed. Also just like planning like to go to bed early. Like, I definitely did not do that.
I think it's about, I've definitely had to learn this, or like rather relearn this throughout quarantine, because everyone, I'm pretty sure everyone, like almost 100% of the population messed up their sleep schedule during some point during quarantine. And I think one thing that really helped is about designing your environment such that you increase your resistance to doing the thing that you shouldn't do. So for example, ultimately it comes down to self-knowledge, as you said, and it connects to all areas of your life. So from mental health to now just even trying to build or break any bad habits. So it's about knowing your tendencies. So for me, I know that things that keep me up at night are my phone. So I put the charger across the room and I make sure to turn off my phone. So even if I do get tempted, I have to wait the few seconds. Although just the knowledge of knowing that, I have to turn on my phone and wait that time. So increase that resistance. And secondly, I tend to read. So like if I'm really into a book, I tend to read late even. So then set a rule for yourself where it's like, I'm only going to read nonfiction at night, or I'm going to set a timer when I read. So that's something else I do. And another thing is getting up, because I think going to bed and getting up is actually related, because if you get up late, then your body's naturally not going to be tired by the time. So you always have to, you have to start with waking up early, as Choco says.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
Yeah, it's about getting up. So getting up for me, it's again about like building and breaking those resistance. So I build resistance by putting the alarm clock away from my bed and like setting like 3 of them. So so I have to actually get up and like to walk across the room and turn off. So you're less likely to go back to bed. And another thing is that I actually lay out all my clothes to work out in the morning. So just like going for a run, like the point isn't even to just work out. The point is to do something so I don't go back to bed. So I think that principle alone can hopefully help people a little bit. And but relating back to year 12 though, I think people don't understand, or like rather I didn't understand the importance of nutrition and its relation to your energy, because recently because I just didn't care back in year 12 and I didn't have the knowledge or the interest to research that either. But I guess a quick tip is that don't eat heavy meals and don't eat heavy carb meals. So meaning that sugar or candy or like a lot of fruits. So, and because I realized I stopped having those afternoon crashes where I used to just be dead after school, and that's definitely a result of my diet. And I think that's a really good point to start from, even though you might be mentally tired, but you can still have that energy so you don't feel like you actually crash in the afternoon, because that's something I definitely felt. So
100%. Yeah. And literally my diet in year 12 was so unhealthy. I think I would eat 1 meal a day and drink a coffee. Like that was, and there is no way that I could have like, yeah, for all the girls and guys out there who are not necessarily restricting the amount they eat, but like one meal a day is not enough. I'm sorry, it's not enough. Like yeah, like your brain will significantly, like your brain function will significantly decrease. You're gonna get headaches. It's just not healthy for you.
Was that like an intermittent fasting thing, or did you literally just randomly eat one meal a day?
Yeah,
I
guess I would have. Well, it wasn't planned in the sense of like I'm gonna fast for this long, but like yeah, I just would only eat one meal a day because I would only eat when I got hungry, and because I trained myself for a really long time, I'd only get hungry around dinner time. So like it was technically intermittent fasting. So yeah,
just skipping breakfast and lunch,
and skip breakfast, skip lunch, and that's so important when you're going to school because like if you don't eat throughout your school day, like oh my god.
Oh yeah, especially like I guess this applies more to guys who are like really active during lunchtime. Like I remember playing basketball so hard at lunch where like after lunch we had a sack and I'm like sitting there trying to wipe the sweat off my like hands and like forehead because I need to write this essay. But
oh my gosh, yeah.
So that really drains you as well. So just don't eat heavy meals. So eat light but eat frequent, and super helpful. Yeah, it's almost like so surprising, and it actually helps with your sleep as well because I used to I don't know about like the general population, but for me, if I ate too much before bed, it actually made me stay up longer. Did you ever feel that? Or did you just not eat as much?
I really didn't eat as much. But yeah, no, definitely, yeah, eating habits are so important to like perfect. And like, yeah, meal prep if you need to. I feel like if I stuck to, because like for I think a week or something, I like would meal prep and I was eating properly and I would have something for breakfast because breakfast is really important. I don't know why I don't eat it. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like work around your schedule. Like you will have time within it. I know it can feel like there's no time at all. Like I definitely experienced that like throughout VCE, just that overwhelming feeling of like I don't have time to take care of myself. I need to sacrifice this in order to get the grades, and like that's not the case. Like there's so much time that we waste, you know, on our phones. Like just pour it into something more productive. I'm not saying stop using your phone and like convert like to like delete all your social medias. I'm not even saying that, but like use them wisely and like
that I definitely took that excuse as well. I was like, I just don't have time in year 12, and that's probably the biggest lie I made to myself during year 12. Like I've realized because, okay, in like the specific things, like I always thought, okay, calorie counting, I should probably try that. And I never tried it until the start of this year, probably. And it wasn't even the summer holidays because I feel like discipline isn't just like, I'll do it when I have time. It's either you're disciplined and you do everything, or you're not disciplined and you don't do shit. And that was for me in the holidays. Like I had time, but I still didn't do it because it was never about time in the first place because it doesn't take that long once you get into it. And yeah, for sure, that myth in year 12 of like, I need to sacrifice everything. Yeah, you do need to sacrifice some things. But at the same time, one of my biggest things was that I was going to get through year 12 and achieve the best I could. But on one condition, I wasn't going to sacrifice my health. And in fact, I was going to build up my health by working out and eating right, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you definitely don't need to sacrifice your health for year 12. This isn't like if you look at the highest achievers, they're not the one who's like emaciated and look like freaking POWs and just like ruining their bodies. They're actually the ones who engage in a lot of commitments, which I didn't do enough in because I thought I fell into that myth of like, I don't have time. But it's really, if you have enough external commitments, not to the point where it's overflowing, but to the point where you're not wasting time, because when you have those commitments, it naturally eliminates. It's like a sponge. You squeeze all that extra water out and you realize how much time you actually have. So instead of spending that 20 minutes on Facebook after dinner, and that like adds up and you can use that for some other commitment. So I feel like that's something I could have done better.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people who in year 12 like quit their part-time jobs or, stopped their activities. And I think reducing hours could be really helpful, but don't quit them unless for some reason, I don't know. But like for me, right, even during my exam period, on Saturday and Sunday mornings. So on Saturday mornings, I went and I volunteered at a wildlife shelter. And on Sunday mornings, I taught soccer classes. And both of those activities were done. I was would be home by like 2 p.m., 3 p.m. And if I didn't have those activities each weekend, I would have gotten out of bed 2 p.m., 3 p.m.
Yeah,
and it would have taken me a long time to get the motivation to start studying, to get that momentum. What I would do is I would come back from, either volunteering or work, and I would take a shower, and then I would go to Glory Jeans, and I would already have that momentum to keep me going, because it's so hard throughout VCE to keep that momentum. Like, you feel burnt out. I definitely did feel burnt out, but I kept pushing on. I think that's important. Maybe try to avoid burning out, but like, honestly, it can sometimes be inevitable. Like, it is a very stressful year.
Yeah, burning out, that's really interesting, because in the long term, I definitely believe like, yeah, you can definitely burn out. But in the short term, have you heard of that so-called study where it was like, okay, you have limited willpower throughout the day, and the more you expend, the less you're able to have. So there has been like, because I know so many individuals out there that embody the polar opposite, where like the more disciplined you are, the more disciplined you're with other things. So one of the better examples that Jocko Willink said was that, okay, if you get up at 5 and you work out and you study and get stuff done, by the time breakfast rolls around, are you going to be more tempted to eat some unhealthy shit like grab a donut, or are you going to be like, okay, I've already come this far, I'm already disciplined, I'm already in that, as you said, like momentum, right? Because momentum is real, especially in discipline and daily routines. So yeah, I think there has been studies that come out where it's kind of like a placebo effect. It's really interesting, where people who believed that the willpower diminishing theory, I guess, was true, did show that effect, whereas people who didn't believe that didn't have that effect. So I thought, damn, that's really interesting. And like, I've seen examples of both, and you see like people like Mark Zuckerberg, who like has like he wears the same shit to like save his decision powers, but that might be different. But anyways, it's just an interesting sidetrack. But no,
I definitely think.
So another thing I want to ask you was that, what was your relationship with your peers? So especially, how did you? So what advice would you give to yourself to kind of maximize the social benefits, but at the same time avoid the toxic paths or the pitfalls that you've maybe fallen into? Yeah,
I think a big thing about going through high school is like, you need to mature and realize that, superficial things like popularity or like the amount of friends that you have doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. Like, I think even in high school, people have that mentality of like, any attention is good attention, like getting themselves caught up in drama, like it's exciting, it's whatnot. Like, you need to remove yourself from those situations, preferably. I'm not telling you what to do. But yeah, I think in year 12, like I would say I had a very small social group when it came to like an inner circle. Like, I had a very small inner circle of like 2-3 people. And then outside of that, like, I would go and socialize with them at parties occasionally. But when it came to like lunch or stuff like that, like, I was already so drained from pouring so much effort into school that like, when it came to lunch, I didn't feel like sitting in a big circle with people. Like, I wanted to sit with my close friends and we could just chill and like wait for the next class to, talk, chill, wait for the next class to happen. I think a lot of people in high school spread themselves really thin because they're trying to be popular, or they're trying to have an exciting social life. Having an exciting social life, I think in high school, people don't have the maturity to see like, it's not about drama. Like, having an exciting social life is going out and experiencing things with your friends. It's not about like this I just think people get caught up in it.
Yeah, see, and the reason why I got you to I wanted to ask you that, because like I feel like there's some credibility there, because for people who don't know, Nicole was fairly popular, I reckon. Like, she had a lot of friends and was pretty outgoing, and whereas me, I'm like not that I'm not outgoing, like I love talking to people, and I have a pretty close group of friends, but it was that I think I just had that kind of like dumb, edgy mentality where I was like, okay, I'm gonna just cut out social just for that focus in year 12. And I think it definitely helped me at some points, but at the same time, it's not something that I really regretted on. I guess it just comes down to personality. But yeah, I'm definitely not the person to ask, like, how do you deal with drama? Like, I just didn't deal with it. I just avoided it. And, But how do you find that? So can you expand a bit more on like, how do you deal with people who are more distracting? Is it just avoiding those interactions, avoiding the drama, or like what sorts of lessons have you learned from like these pitfalls?
Yeah, I think How do you, okay, so distracting as in you mean drama?
From school, because like, because like we've all experienced like that feeling of like when you're just in a drama situation with someone and that really that really sucks all of your attention and you don't have, you feel like you're just disabled like mentally when you have that thing hanging in the back of your mind. And like, what are some strategies that you use to, I guess prevention is the best cure, but also once you're in that situation, how do you pull yourself out of it?
I think the best advice is, to walk away. Like, genuinely, like, I think a lot of people realize this in university. I'm lucky that I realized it earlier. It's just that friendships aren't actually meant to be hard. Like, friendships should not be this, dramatized movie, like coming of age story in which like you're screaming at each other or like you're backstabbing each other, you're talking shit, you're spreading rumors. It doesn't have to be like that at all. Like, friendships should be easy. Genuine friends will want the best for you and you'll want the best for them. Like, you'll be supportive and like obviously like real friends, you'll have that line of open communication. So if something does go wrong, you just openly communicate it, and then it's not a confrontation, it's a conversation. And like from there, your friendship can only get stronger. Like, a real friend wouldn't do something to hurt you.
To undermine you.
To hurt you, undermine you, make you feel small, like anything. Like I don't think, like, high school is a very toxic environment. I don't think the people in high school are necessarily toxic people themselves. I don't think, like, to label someone a toxic person, that's pretty strong. But like, everybody has toxic, personality traits.
For sure.
And it's about getting that maturity to recognize them and change on them. Because like, I was definitely guilty of thinking in a way in which was like, oh yeah, popularity, all that stuff, back in like year 10 or 11, like just really immature. And like, to realize like, because like most of my drama was in year 11, for me at least. And like, to realize that if like someone wants to be your friend or like all that stuff, like they'll be your friend. Like, don't be out there begging for people to be your friend, if that makes sense, or like thinking or putting up with people's treatment if you don't think it's what you deserve. Like, the whole thing of like treat people how you want to be treated, and if they don't if they don't give you that same energy, then it's fine to walk away. Like, you'll really, like, once you get out of high school, you'll realize that much sooner, because when you're in university, like, you find a lot of friends who will match your energy, and you realize, oh, actually, this is what a healthy friendship's supposed to be like. Like, it's not meant to be hard. Like, yeah,
I connect to that on definitely some levels, because it just didn't feel for me like I definitely didn't feel like I didn't fit in with most of the people, because like a lot of people at our school were like into partying, and not that many, despite it being a selective school, not that many people I feel like had that level of, not ambition, but just like they didn't have similar goals to what I had in mind. And I think definitely I just stuck to like a smaller group of friends who didn't have to match that, but at least shared some traits. So for example, you or Anna, who, and I don't think, one thing that really important, I think one of my friends told me, was that friends don't always have to serve every purpose in your life. So let me know if you agree with this or not, but like, you have some friends that are there for partying, to have fun, to play games, to have over, but you can't expect them to be also have that same level of focus when it comes to studying, or because I don't know, I get weirdly frustrated when I don't see people, or like I used to, like matching that same level of like motivation I had. I'm just thinking like, why are you not taking this seriously? Like, why are you just being a lazy piece of shit or whatever? So, but after realizing that you can't expect everyone to be on that journey with you, especially because, okay, to be honest, like achieving high, even though people will say they want it, but most people don't really decide to go after it. It's just something, obviously everyone likes achieving, but no one actually likes the journey. So for the people who do decide to take that journey, I think it's really important to kind of not hold that expectation to others, because that will end up actually ruining your expectations and your friendship in some way, just because like you don't appreciate them in the same way that you appreciate them in a different context. So and also, like, did you feel like when you go to parties, or like people who didn't share the hardworking side with you, did you feel like they took that focus away from you, or what was your strategy to isolate those two?
I think I just went to parties with the mentality of like, oh, okay, this is for recreation. Like, this is my recreation time. Like, I have a lot of friends who, like, one of my best friends, like, I think she dropped out in year 11 or something like that. We're very different from each other when it comes to like she was the type not to try hard in school, where I've always been the type to try. And like, definitely when I was younger, it like used to frustrate me. I was like, why don't you try? Like, yeah, why are you being lazy and all that stuff? And like, I just didn't realize that like not everyone is actually built for school, and she has her own ambitions, like, and all that stuff. And I think it just came with like getting that maturity of realizing like, oh, like, friends, you aren't really meant to walk the exact same path with your friends. Like, your paths intercross, or like they are, you know, you check in here and there and whatnot. And like, yeah, I think it's just showing that level of maturity when it comes to just, yeah, different friends definitely serve different purposes, I guess, or like fill different niches. Yeah, which is completely fine.
Yeah, did you feel like there was an underlying sort of theme of solidarity, at least in some regards, to really achieving your top? Because even though I think I wouldn't call myself introverted, but at the same time, I do see a lot of traits when it comes to like when I'm working towards a goal. I don't like to have people around me who are distracting, and I find focus in being alone with my own thoughts instead of being with people who study together in like a study group or something. So I forgot what I was asking, but I guess like, yeah. Did you share that in any way? Like, it's funny. It's funny because you say you don't put that expectation on people who I guess you go partying with to.
Yeah.
Because as you said, they're only there for recreational purposes. But then once you do form those bonds, how do you like? Because I guess it's a bit weird and untrue to say you have friends for different purposes. In the end, you only have one or two really close people, and you tend to want to do everything with them. Did you ever feel that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. Like the friends that like with yeah, like in high school, I only had a few close friends, I would say. Like I didn't get extremely close with a lot of people, and like that's how I've always been. Like even growing up, like I always like to have my inner circle be very small, because I like when it comes to friends, I will commit a lot of time to my friends or stuff like that. Like, and those friends that are within my inner circle generally match me really well. Like we are all like, okay, so for example, like my uni group of friends, like we study call because they've gone overseas now because they're international students. But like we study call like every day, stuff like that. Like we're constantly doing stuff together. Because we all have that same ambition. I have friends outside of that group of, like, outside of that inner group of, I can't even speak English. I have friends outside of that inner group circle, but it's not at that same level. And I think what people fail to, like, sometimes see is that you don't have to be at that same level with everybody. Like, it's okay to keep that small. And, like, because even from high school, there's only a few people in which I would, like, seek out to, like, catch up with and meet up with. Like, I didn't have that many really close bonds in high school.
Yeah, that is true. I think it's funny because I kind of realized this because I saw it in my parents, because people always was like, okay, friends are what you're going to be, are what's most important from yourself, which like is true in a sense that relationships are definitely the most important things in life. But at the same time, when you actually study people who finish high school, how many high school friends do they really keep? And especially, I'm not talking about like everyone, maybe just the people who you want to model yourself after, or like the adults, like it's not that many. So I guess having that perspective really helps with like avoiding the need, or like the, what's another stronger word, but like I guess just need for like popularity or like being friends with everyone, because at the end of the day, it really doesn't, like for me, I only connect with probably just a few, like including
same.
So just like less than probably like 5 high school friends. And so that's why I can like justify to myself, okay, the sacrifice, quote unquote, was worth it, even though I think it also brought me peace at the same time and avoided that drama. And yeah, I just think that really speaks to, like, if you look at people who are in uni now at a later stage in life who've been through the same thing, and because when we are in high school, we can't have that perspective because we're like in the midst of it. But I think it's really important like to absorb these kind of experiences and perspective, because I hoped I had someone tell me this, is that it just goes back to the point that, okay, like close friends are important, but at the same time, like don't let yourself get distracted by having to be popular or appealing to everyone.
Yeah.
It's a hard fear to overcome for sure, though, I think.
Yeah, because it's ingrained in us. Like no one enters high school being like, I don't want to be popular. No one like. So it's just about it's learning about it, and like you've got to realize that like obviously you'll find some relationships in high school which are gonna like stand the test of time, but at the most part, like the people that you are in high school, like okay, let's say 10 years time, if I'm still the same person I was like in 10 years time, if I'm still the same person I was in high school, I know I've done something wrong. Like your cohort even is going to change so drastically throughout those 10 years, 5 years, even 2 years. Like going back to we have our 2-year reunion coming up. It's going to be so different to see everyone again, because I hope like people, because I feel so different from when I was in high school. Like I feel like I've matured a lot, and like I'm hoping some people else have, and like the people that you didn't necessarily connect with in high school, you might connect with later in life just by coincidence and whatnot. And you might turn out to be really good friends, just because you've both changed. Like,
it's definitely not permanent either.
People don't,
Anyways, but going back to, I guess, VCE a bit more, what do you think was the... this has been interesting, but like, what do you think was the biggest waste of time for you in VCE? Just... if you just kind of do the math, or like it doesn't even have to be time, or just like mental energy that you feel like you could have saved yourself.
Yeah, gosh. I just think the way that things were taught in classrooms, like obviously students will have no control over it, but like I just felt it was so unproductive. Like I had a very frustrating feeling throughout in classes, like partly to do with like my ADHD of not being able to focus, but like at the same time, I think a big part of it was just I didn't think the teachers were teaching in the most productive way. Like that's why I think you can kind of relate, because we're both like self-studiers, like we teach ourselves, that type of thing. And I felt like I could teach myself faster, at least if they taught it in a way in which was like more appealing or something like that. I don't know. I just think there was a lot of time wasting done throughout VCE.
I definitely
when
agree
it came
with
to the classroom
point.
setting.
Yeah, I shared the same frustration, but I realized if we were to look at it from a less, not arrogant, but just like a kind of point, like, like what's a more productive way of thinking about it? For me, it was that maybe I could redistribute my time a bit better, because rather than, I'm not saying you're blaming them, obviously, this is true. But I'm just saying, like, rather than feeling like, damn, I'm such a victim because my teachers waste time, I guess you can like, one way to adjust for that is to, rather than getting ahead in content on your own, you can spend your own time on something else. So, and actually utilizing that time in class to learn the content for the first time, which I think I've talked about previously. And so rather than getting ahead in your spare time, maybe use that time in quality and really digging into the content and understanding it and doing the harder questions. So this applies a bit more for science and math, I feel like. And English, maybe. English is not so much content, so it's a bit different. But yeah, definitely, I think that's a pitfall that is avoidable, but I think it's important to not feel like a victim and just blame the teachers and just like, okay, I give up because I have shitty teachers at the same time.
Yeah, I definitely fell into that trap of like, I didn't use my class time productively. Like I definitely just zoned out in class and whatnot, which was a mistake on my behalf. Like I could have used that time so productively. And if I built a relationship with some of the teachers in which they understood that like, I don't think for me, because just I mainly base it off English and English language, but like for me, because I had that extra tutoring beforehand, that's why I felt it so frustrating. But like obviously that's not the case for most students. I'm a bit of an exception in that sense. But even if you feel like you can't like focus in class, like you really should use that time productively. I wasted so much time in class not paying attention.
So instead of, I can imagine, because that's a hard pitfall to go over, especially with English. because they're like still going through the same concepts which you've already learned. Yeah, I guess in that case that would be a bit hard to do.
Yeah, I think that's something that I had to deal with is like, get off your freaking high horse, Nicole. Like, like hop down and just instead of it's like what you said, instead of complaining like, oh, I already know this content, like take this time and like hone your skills, you know, do the harder questions, think about the harder concepts, all that type of stuff. Like use your time productively, because we go to school for like 6 hours and that's a long time. You should use that productively, because I would, every time in class, like every period, I'd just be waiting for the period to end. And it just wasn't a good use of my time.
Yeah. Talking about organization, how did you have a system that you set up to keep your daily schedule organized?
I'm not the most organized person, but yeah, when it came to SACs and stuff like that, like that's something that you need to make a list for, so you know what's upcoming and you know how quickly to start preparing. Like I think I'd start preparing, like really preparing like 2 weeks before, something like that. Yeah, or depending on the spacing of the SAC. Like, yeah, also know your SACs and how they coincide with others, because then you'll have to split your time evenly. Like if you have, because that's the thing, like let's say you have a SAC on, a method SAC on Wednesday, and then you have an English essay on Thursday. It's not that you study for methods up until Wednesday and then Wednesday night you just study for English, because then you haven't allocated your time effectively, and then your English essay SAC is going to be at a disadvantage. So it's really about planning. I hate planning. It makes me stressed, but like it's something that's so vital to like doing well in VCE, and it's very easy to forget. Like it's very easy to get lost and not time manage. Like I sometimes felt overwhelmed by it, but yeah.
It's funny how you say like planning makes you more stressed, because I'm like the complete opposite. Whenever I get overwhelmed and stressed, planning is like the number one thing that like relieves stress, because once I know, So did you, was that accurate, or did you have like some nuance behind it that I like didn't interpret?
It's definitely just, it's down to the person. I think I'm a little bit weird about how planning makes me stressed.
Oh, okay. Because like the way I thought about it was that the reason why I was stressed, because I feel like I was getting overwhelmed and I should be doing like 3 things at once because they were all coming up. And once I plan, I know which ones to tackle. So it pretty much is about just prioritizing. And once you have that plan, it really, you clear your mind off that clutter and you can really just get to work. So for me, staying organized was definitely big. So outside of SACs and like big important exam dates, actually, people have exams coming up pretty soon. We're doing this like November, or almost November. I think tomorrow's November. Yeah. Do you have any advice for exam preparation? So
exam preparation,
whether that's how to schedule, how to like actually make a preparation plan. I know you don't like plans, but I'm sure you still did one. And
did
also,
one,
and also, do you have any strategies or tactics that you use to deal with exam stress, especially knowing that if you know yourself to be a bit more likely to succumb to the pressure? Yeah,
I definitely think, well, if exams are, I think have the exams already started? Wait, no, the first exam couldn't have been today. It's a Saturday.
No, I think kids have English in like 12 days or something.
Oh, okay, so it's pushed back. Well, hopefully by now, if you're doing your exams, you've already learnt the content. So now it's time to consolidate your knowledge. Hopefully, yeah. So if you've made your plan, and like if you've planned out like when your exams are, and you can decide how much time you need to study to it. It doesn't have to be split across evenly. If you feel like one subject you need to dedicate more of your time to, that's perfectly fine. Like dedicate it in a way in which you think will best suit you. Like it doesn't have to be even across the board. I think what I did for exams is if my exam was so if my exam was like if I had a week between, my exams are actually pretty split up, like a week between each, except for English and English language, which usually are a month apart. But in my year level, they were like, actually, let's make them a day after each other.
Yay.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have two exams, either on the same day or a day after each other, the week before, split up the time you study for it evenly. Do not focus mainly, evenly, but like sort of favor the one that is first, because like after you complete that exam, you'll still have a bit of time to consolidate your knowledge on the second one. But yeah, definitely don't dedicate all of your time just to the first exam, because you're gonna finish that exam, have all the adrenaline for it, go to study for the second exam that you have either the next day or hopefully not the same day, and realize, oh, there's so much more that I should have done. And you'll have that feeling, and you'll go into your exam feeling really stressed. Like the worst feeling that you could possibly give yourself, like starting off of an exam, is to go and walk into that exam hall and feel like I should have done more. Like you want to go into an exam hall feeling like there's nothing more that I could have done. Because that way, in which like if you don't know a question, it's not going to hit you as hard as like if you don't know a bunch of questions. Okay, actually, let me rephrase this. If you don't know a question, in both scenarios, one question in both scenarios, you're going to beat yourself up a lot more if you feel like you should have studied more. Whereas if you feel like, oh, there's nothing that I could have done, this is just a left ball question, it's all right, I'm going to move on and finish what I do know, because I do know the content, and I do know like that I've dedicated enough time to know this subject inside out. Like it's okay if I slip up this once. Whereas like if you miss out on that one question and you think, oh my God, there's like, I should have done so much more. Obviously in these scenarios, if you thought you should have done more, like you're going to not know more than one question, maybe. You know what I'm trying to say? Sure. But yeah, definitely it's with exam preparation, it's all about setting yourself up with the best like mentality to walking into that exam hall.
On the day, say you're 10 minutes before walking in, and another time is when you're sitting down at the table and you have the exam in front of you, and before the exam starts, what are you telling yourself? What is your mindset and mood like in those two, and how do you help regulate those?
This is kind of weird, but like I think I told you this. I kind of talk to myself a bit, but positive. I'm gonna just say it. Positive affirmation, or just like telling yourself like even in your head, like, oh shit, you got this. Like, just don't beat yourself up and like start the exam thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to fail this. No, be like, oh, I'm going to ace this. Like, you know what? Like, I got this. You know, I've done all that I can. Like, no matter what, I got this. I think I told you, I think we had a conversation in year 12 in which I told you that like, I would tell myself like, I'm a machine. I got this. Yeah. Like, I'm a machine.
I love that.
And it's all about this, like mentality is huge, and the brain is so powerful. Like the attitude that you bring, like the vibes are just like, it's so important. Like you don't, because that's the thing, like I definitely experience really bad like test anxiety. Like I get very anxious when it comes to this stuff, and I'm prone to like, oh, if I don't know something, or if I get a little bit sidetracked during exam, I'm really harsh on myself, and like instead of like taking the approach of being like Nicole, like what the fuck are you doing? Like what, like beating yourself up and being self-deprecating, like just be nice to yourself, be kind, and like within those 10 minutes, don't be thinking like, oh my God, what happens if I fail? Like all that stuff. Like, because at the end of the day, you're not going to have control. And within those last 10 minutes, there's nothing that you could possibly learn. Like there's no, like in those 10 minutes, don't be going through your checklist of like, what do you know and all that stuff. Just work on like, you know, calming your heart rate, like getting into that, you know, positive mindset, you know, in which like you feel like, oh yeah, I do have this, like I can do this, because you don't want to start your exam being like with the mentality that you've already fucked it over.
Right, because the truth is with everyone, you actually underestimate the amount of, okay, I can't speak for everyone, but this is for the people who are like around my group. So you actually underestimate the amount of work you have done, because I remember looking over my year 12 stuff. I was cleaning my room the other day, and there were just boxes and boxes of like papers and exam. They were so heavy, and I was like, damn, I put in this much work. And that's really where your source of confidence really comes from. It's just knowing that you've put in the hours, and like I keep having these like shower thoughts of like, okay, maybe you don't have a 1 percentile talent, but it is truly up to you to have that, you know, top percentile work ethic. And I think at the end of the day, that's what really brings you that satisfaction and peace. Because as you said, like, and there's really nothing that beats preparation. Like all these tactics that you use on exam day, they're just auxiliary. Like for me, it's about like maximizing performance. But if you haven't prepared, then you're going to face the consequences, and just simple as that. So
100%.
there's really no hack. Yeah. But having
There's no
said that,
hack
though,
to skipping preparation. It's such a, it's so vital.
Yeah. But having said that, though, like on the day, for me, what I do, especially for science and math, I keep a list with me of all the tendencies and mistakes I usually make beforehand. So this is from doing the practice exams. When you do them, reflection is so important. I've like gone over this point so many times, but I write down 2 columns. So I have mistakes and knowledge gaps. So mistakes are so then you look through, okay, out of 10 practice exams, what are the common mistakes I make? And I put that down into the ultimate list. And that's the list I look up on the exam day, because the key to avoid mistakes is to actually be aware of them. And secondly, for me, what I do is not so much the knowledge gaps, because you should have already amended those. But it's about those techniques. So this is probably more method than spec and physics. So it's about those techniques that you use. So maybe it's about, I don't know, just like these unusual ways of problem solving that is applicable and versatile. So for example, oh God, I can't remember. Maybe it's like, maybe it's just like about drawing something simple as like drawing out the graph and like seeing a certain relationship. So you'll discover these as you do practice exams, and it might be different for everyone, but those are what's the most important, because a question is never going to pop up twice. And I'm talking about the harder, like last page questions. They're going all the other skill testing, they're the same, but the skill and the problem solving is what is useful. So I keep a list of that and I read through that, and maybe that's a bit paranoid of me and I didn't need to do that, but I feel like it definitely helps to remind yourself, okay, you have all these tools. And I can't remember why this relates to, I feel like this relates to an earlier point you made, like way earlier, but you have all the tools
about,
you
like,
need
feeling prepared,
in the question to solve it. So nothing is beyond kind of like your ability, if that makes sense. So even if a question can look daunting, you should have the confidence, because all the information you need is there and all the knowledge you've been taught is there, but you just need to use it in a way where it's not intuitive to 99% of the people, but it's still doable. So I think having that confidence and really helps with anxiety as well. You don't just feel like I'm just stupid or like this is impossible. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
A few more quick questions. So if you could do VCE again, what subjects would you have picked, or like what subject would you have avoided? I know you mentioned art earlier.
I would not have done art. I would have, instead of art, I don't know exactly what I would have picked, because ideally I was actually going to do English language and literature, because writing is like my strong point. Like when it came to art, like I got, with every written assessment, I got A+, but my portfolio is what let me down, because I just didn't have enough time to dedicate it to it. So if it was a subject in which, I don't know what subject I would have picked instead of it, but something to do with writing, because like I couldn't do literature just because that English language and literature classes were at the very same time. Oh,
okay. Yeah, that sucks. But yeah, so it's about knowing yourself and like knowing what you're good at. Was there also an aspect of because for me, I kind of just went with the classic Asian 5. Because one, I didn't really have the self-knowledge of knowing what I liked, and luckily I was okay with the subjects. And secondly, I didn't really have, what did I say was the first point? Yeah, secondly, I was just chasing that kind of like scaling, because my goal was to maximize the score, which I don't know if it's good advice for everyone, but I think it's great, which I think you're one of the few exceptions who actually, not really exceptions, but rather like, it's good if you can find what you like doing, because then you enjoy it so much more. Yeah. So how do you think you find that self-knowledge? And I think this is a bit late, because once you're doing like year 11, year 12, you're kind of just stuck in what you're doing, aren't you? Yeah. But I guess like, are there any ways you think to kind of gain that self-knowledge and picking the right subjects for you?
Definitely pick the subjects that you think you will excel in. Obviously, that's like a no-brainer. But like, for example, like I originally was only going to do English language, but because in year 11, I took chemistry as well. And then I was like, actually, I'm not going to take chemistry. So I dropped it and I picked up English. And that's okay. Like I need chemistry for, like, I'm doing veterinary at the moment. And I need chemistry for that. I also needed physics. I had to do a semester of physics. what the hell was that? That almost killed me. I am not a physics person. I don't even know why for veterinary you need physics, but it is a prerequisite.
I know, it's so dumb.
Yeah, prerequisites are important, but also is look around it, because like I needed chemistry for veterinary, but I looked into it and I found out that I can just take a summer course, and if I do that, then like I'm back on track with everybody else. And I made the executive decision. My mom was like, you shouldn't do this, but I was like, I'm gonna do it anyway, of dropping chemistry, picking up English, which is something that I knew I would do miles better in. And I could just focus on chemistry later, because I knew that if I did chemistry then, I would have had to sacrifice a lot for other subjects. So yeah, obviously, if you know what you want to do for university, make sure you check the prerequisite subjects and if there are ways around it, because there were some universities that I couldn't apply to because I didn't have chemistry specific to veterinary, but there were also a lot that I could. And so just have that knowledge if you want to get into a specific course. Make sure you check before you drop any subjects.
For sure. Damn, we're almost hitting 2 hours. That flew by so quick.
Oh yeah, oh my God.
I'll end on this question. How would you, if you could make 1 or 2 suggestions for VC students who are aspiring to achieve highly, what do you think they would be? Whether that be daily habits, whether that be a certain mindset, or what would be your suggestion?
I think so if you're a VCE student, probably, well, this advice is kind of a bit too late. If you're going into VCE, take it as VCE starts from the first day of school. Like, so many people think VCE only starts when exams come, and they neglect all of those different stuff. Like, obviously SACs aren't that big of a deal, but at the same time, if you're seeking to be a high achieving student, those small marks is what differentiates you from everybody else. And even on the exams, starting very early is going to help you in a way in which will also differentiate you from all the other people who started studying even at the half year point. A lot of people start studying at the half year point. They're like, oh, it's coming soon, so I better I better knuckle down now. Whereas like if you start from day 1, it's going to be a lot easier for you in the long run. Like, yeah, it might feel at the start like, oh my God, why am I pushing myself so hard? But you'll get to the end and like you'll see the stress of other people who only just started pushing themselves, and you'll understand, okay, this is why I pushed myself at the start.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a, not understated in the sense that people don't say enough. I definitely teachers say enough, but it's such an underappreciated point.
Yeah, so many students don't value it.
Yeah, it's just like, you can't make up for all those hours. Like if you start early, there's such a big difference. Like even if you just put in 1 hour per day, but you start 2 months ahead, how many hours is that? It doesn't matter what sort of work they do once exams come up, because I felt that in year 12. Like I've seen other people, like they really start ramping it up. I see more people after school, but it's kind of like I look at them and I'm like, dude, it's too late.
It's too late, I know.
It's too late.
Yeah, because I had a lot of friends when it came to like English, more so English language, because that's more like a syllabus subject. Like you have to learn specific content, who are really struggling to learn it, and they were always so late. Because that's the thing, like when something like English language, you have so many labels that you need to remember. It's really hard for you to commit that much knowledge to like memory, like to put it into your memory bank. Whereas if you start early, it's okay. Like that's the thing. If you try and make yourself learn the whole syllabus at the very start of the year, you're going to forget about 20% of it, 40%, depending on how effective you are, right? But that's okay, because that's at the start of the year. And then you actually have so much time to fill in those knowledge gaps. And then by the time you get to the end of the exam, you're not worrying about missing 40% of the content. You're worrying about, you're consolidating and checking through and like catching that one, there's 1 or 2 labels that slipped through, and you're just picking up on that. It's so much less stressful. You do not understand how much less stressful it is. Like another thing you can apply it to so many different subjects. If you have a lot of labels or terms that you need to remember, make acronyms, make freaking acronyms or initialisms, whatever will help you remember them. Like, I know that seems like a very primary school way of doing it, but it will save your life, because under the stress of exams, if you need to think of a certain label and you can't remember it, but it's on the tip of your tongue, write out your little acronym on the side of the paper. And since if you started using them at the start of the year, that will prompt you. You'll be able to be like, oh, okay. Like one of the, like I had an acronym called Salami Pop. And like if I wrote that down, like I would know, okay, this is what it is. Like as childish as it seems, make them ridiculous as well. The more ridiculous that they sound, the more that they'll like stick out in your brain. Just think of little tiny ways to remember all these things, no matter how childish it is. Because at the end of the day, like VCE is a game.
That's so funny. Awesome point to end on. But also, let me just say, like, I do that unconsciously as well with like uni stuff. I remember there's a term recently I'm learning called it's like orexigenic versus like anorexigenic. And I'm just thinking like one's for promoting fat and the other one's promoting like just not eating as much. And I'm just thinking like, okay, the one that starts with O looks more fat. And I'm just like, so that's the fat promoting one. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so,
think of these things that will like spark them in your brain. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Thanks so much, Nicole, for coming on. And
No
awesome
problem.
advice for all of us, all the aspiring VC kids out there. And all right, I'll see you next time.